What I'm about to tell you is a story that changed the way I see the world, changed how I understand trust, patience, and what it really means to protect someone you love. And if you care about someone, your wife, your girlfriend, your sister, this story will hit differently than you expect. Just stay with me. Every word matters. It was a Friday night in January. One of those cold, quiet nights where the city feels alive in this strange, glittery way. My wife, Leela, had been talking about this work party for weeks. Not because she was excited exactly, but because her boss, let's call him Mr. Callahan, had a way of making attendance feel like it wasn't optional. Callahan was in his 40s, always sharply dressed, always smiling just a little too long when he spoke to someone. Leela never really liked him. She mentioned small things over time, how he'd stand too close during meetings, how his compliments often felt like they came before anything professional. Nothing extreme, but enough that any woman who works knows the drill. You file it quietly, you tell yourself you're imagining it, because if you complain, they'll say you're overreacting. I listened. I got that tight feeling in my chest, but Leela always said, "It's fine, I can handle it." And I trusted her judgment. She's smart, strong, she knows her own limits. So she went to the party. I stayed home. We had a system. She would text me around 10 p.m. just to check in. I made myself some dinner, turned on a show I didn't even care about, and waited for that text. 10:00 came, nothing. 10:30, still nothing. By 11:00, I had already sent 2 texts. No reply. Normally, I wouldn't worry, I'm not that kind of person. But that night, something in my gut felt wrong. That feeling when your body knows before your mind does. At 11:15, she walked in. And the moment I saw her, I knew something had happened. Not because she looked upset, not because she was crying. Her makeup was perfect, her dress neat. But the way she closed the door, soft, careful, almost apologetic, the way she paused before turning around, it was all small, almost invisible. And yet it screamed that her night had gone differently than she expected. I asked if she was okay. She said, "Yeah, just tired." I asked why she hadn't texted. She said her phone died. Then she went to the bedroom and I sat there, staring at the wall. Because I knew she wasn't telling the whole truth. I didn't push her. I've known Leela long enough to know, when she shuts a door, the worst thing you can do is break it down. So I gave her space. I lay next to her that night, listening to her breathing, and eventually I fell asleep. The next morning, Leela sat at the kitchen table with her coffee, quiet for a moment before she finally spoke. "Something happened last night," she said. "I've been trying to figure out how to tell you." And then she told me. Toward the end of the party, when the music had softened and people were starting to leave, Callahan had come up behind her. She was standing near the bar, mid-conversation with a colleague, and he had placed his hand on her lower back. Not a quick, accidental touch, not a brushing motion. A deliberate, lingering hand that shifted slightly toward her hip. Leela stiffened instantly and moved away. And Callahan, he acted like nothing happened. Smiled, laughed at someone else's joke, carried on as if it were normal. She spent the next 20 minutes trying to convince herself she'd imagined it. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe she was overreacting. And then she drove home, stood at the front door, and tried to figure out how to tell me without making it sound dramatic. I sat across from her, listening, my jaw tight. Hands gripping the coffee mug. And I noticed the thing that broke my heart the most. She wasn't uncertain about what happened. She was uncertain about whether she had the right to feel upset about it. I put my coffee down and said the only thing that mattered. "I believe you. It was not okay. You are not overreacting." She exhaled, a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. In that moment, something shifted. That small phrase, 3 simple words, was the thing she needed more than anything. I know what some of you are expecting me to say next, that I stormed the office, confronted him, or made a scene. I didn't. Not because I wasn't angry, I was furious. Cold, focused fury. But because Leela asked me not to. "Please," she said, "don't do anything that makes this about you. This is my career. Let me handle this." And I respected her, but I didn't do nothing. I just acted quietly, deliberately. The first thing I did was ask Leela carefully if she thought she was the only one. I'd been thinking about it since she told me. The way he had acted, the comfort with which he had done it, it didn't feel like a one-time thing. She hesitated, then mentioned a younger colleague, Sarah, who had moved to another department a few months ago without much explanation, and another woman who had left suddenly a few years back. Little things she'd noticed over time, women tensing up slightly when Callahan entered a room, subtle shifts in the office energy. We decided to see if anyone else would talk. Leela reached out to Sarah outside of work, completely off the company's channels. They met for coffee, and Sarah confirmed what I feared: it wasn't just Leela. She had experienced similar incidents. Once she thought it was accidental, the second time she knew it was. She had gone to HR, and the response had been the same frustrating story many women know too well. "We'll look into it. Any witnesses?" She had none. 2 weeks later, she was quietly moved to another department. Nothing had happened to Callahan. I felt sick, not with anger, but with the weight of how ordinary this all was. How many workplaces silently allow this behavior? How many women just file it away, move departments, question themselves, wonder if they're imagining it? Leela and I made a plan. Slowly, carefully. Over months, she documented everything: dates, times, exactly what happened. Sarah did the same, looking back and writing down everything she could remember. They even found 2 other women willing to come forward if needed. Leela also spoke with an employment attorney. Not to file a lawsuit, yet, but to learn the exact steps: how to document incidents, how to report them so HR would have to act, and what retaliation might look like. Then she filed a formal report. Written, detailed, dates, descriptions, evidence, everything clear and undeniable. And that's when the wheels started turning. What happened next wasn't fast. It wasn't dramatic in a movie way. But it was real, and it was powerful. Within 2 weeks of Leela filing the formal complaint, Callahan was placed on administrative leave. An external HR investigation was brought in, exactly what the attorney recommended, because an internal investigation at a company protecting a senior employee almost never works. Leela, Sarah, and the other women gave statements. Every detail, every uncomfortable moment, carefully documented. The investigation took 6 weeks. 6 long weeks of waiting, uncertainty, stress, but also of quiet determination. And then one Thursday evening, Leela called me from the parking garage at work. I could hear it in her voice before she even spoke. "It's done," she said. That was it, just 2 words. I had to pull over my car because I couldn't see the road properly. Callahan, the man who had made Leela feel unsafe, who had laughed like nothing had happened, was terminated. Not quietly moved, not given another chance elsewhere, terminated for cause. Justice, finally. But here's what I've realized, what this story really shows: it's not about him. He's almost a footnote. The story is about what happens in the space between the moment something wrong occurs and the moment something is done about it. For women, that space is often filled with doubt, second-guessing, and self-blame. For men, that space can be filled with ego, pride, and the need to act first, often making things worse. What mattered most, what truly changed the outcome, was quiet support. Listening, believing, letting Leela lead. Sitting across from her that night, saying 3 words she desperately needed to hear: "I believe you." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't violent. But it was the thing that made her feel safe enough to take the next step, and the next, and the next. Leela stayed at that company. She got a promotion 8 months after the investigation ended. She works now in a department with a completely different culture, one shaped by the absence of the man who had been poisoning it for years. Sarah is back in the main office too, and the energy feels lighter, safer. Sometimes at night, we talk about that January party. And every time, Leela says the same thing. The moment she knew everything was going to be okay wasn't when she filed the report. It wasn't when the decision came down. It was that morning at the kitchen table when she told me what had happened, and I didn't flinch. I just said, "I believe you." Think about that, 3 small words, simple, quiet. But in that moment, they changed everything. They made her feel seen. They made her feel safe. They gave her the courage to move forward. How many women don't have that? How many tell someone they trust and get anything less? Doubt, hesitation, excuses. How many stories end differently because that one person doesn't say what needs to be said? If you're watching this and someone you care about tells you something uncomfortable, something that makes them feel vulnerable, I want you to hear this. Those 3 words matter. Not as a performance, not because it's what people expect you to say, but because they give the person in front of you the clarity and courage to act. Quiet support is powerful. Belief is powerful. Patience and presence are powerful, and sometimes just being there,